How you
Chris, how
doing?
you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So just to get into it, and I know you've probably gotten this question like 1,000 times already today, so but I got to ask it. So what are the pros and cons of going from animation to live action? Do you find now that you've had this, do you prefer one over the other?
Well, there's a animation is a really great way. If you're a filmmaker, I recommend you doing at least some project in animation. And animation, what's great about it is it's filmmaking in slow motion, and specifically it's storytelling in slow motion. So if you really want to understand the inner mechanics of how a story works, and again be pressured into deciding every little detail about what's necessary and what's not necessary, animation is a great way to learn that, because it's all very expensive. There's very few cheap versions of doing an animated movie. It's all very, very pricey. So you have to do a lot of previs, layout, storyboards, animatics, things like that as you're building your reels. So it forces you to really think about how and pack as much into a story. That's why the Pixar movies work so well, and why a lot of animated movies work so well and are so emotional, because they really hone every inch of the material, and every moment, every scene has multiple things going on, and to me uh that's why I think it's such a useful experience to go through something like that. So I think it just makes you a better filmmaker by going through an animated movie. The pros and cons are, um, animation is you control every little thing. You control every little aspect of the film. You can every leaf that blows, every tree, every animal in the sky, anything. You control all of it. um and in live action, you practically control none of it. literally it's literally the exact opposite, where it's like almost all out of your control. You can't control the weather. You can't control something that doesn't show up on time. You can't control. There's a million things that are out of your control. And and that might sound bad on the one hand, and it can be, depending, but I think that if you're I'm a person who I like a little bit of pressure. I think I get really creative the more limitations that are
Right.
placed on me, and I think that the teams that I've worked with are like that too. So for me, having that kind of chaos is actually a really freeing place, because yes, you're gonna have a plan, and yes, there's your hopes and desires, and maybe there's a way to make the thing in your head work, but you might need to make a trade-off. So you have to be constant, you have to be on your toes always, and making
Yeah.
really good decisions and honing your decision instincts and that sort of thing. And so that's a great training ground for a different kind of thing. And I like it because it's like you're in the trenches with other people, because a lot of times in animation, you're siloed in a place. You're maybe talking to a handful of people, but then they're going off and they're siloed. Here you've got 100 people around you who you're just going like, okay, here's the problem, here's what we got to do, and somebody's go, I've got a solution, or I worked on this movie and they solved it this way. And then it's like everyone's going at a mile a minute, and you're coming up with things. And there's something about that DNA that gets baked into your movie if you're doing it right, and it's really organic, and there's a sense of like joy, or that creative fire that's going on there. I think that stuff gets baked in a movie, and an audience can feel it, and that makes the movie, I think, kind of lift off the screen. And so for me, there's something, I'm always going to want to do animation, because animation's fun, and there's lots of stuff, lots of things for a filmmaker that you get to do in animation you can't do anyplace else. But for me, live action is something I'm always going to pursue, because I grew up as a guy loving, Spielberg and George Romero and John Carpenter, and James Cameron, and like all of the greatest films of my childhood are the things that made me want to be a filmmaker. So some of that's animation, but some of that's the Road Warrior.
Right. And there's a lot of shades of those movies you just mentioned and those filmmakers mentioned in the Tomorrow War.
Sure, yeah.
So I felt like in many spots, like Tomorrow War could go, in many moments, you could almost go full Starship Troopers, but you guys, in terms of like blood and gore, but you guys don't go quite that far, but you're still you're really pushing up against the wall.
Yeah, we definitely pushed it with PG-13 for sure.
Yeah, which is great though, because there's so much more you can do with a PG-13
Yeah,
than say you could, maybe 10, 15 years ago.
yeah.
Um, did you find that so working with Chris Pratt on this film, and he's also executive producing, did his involvement as an executive producer and a star like really enhance the shape the final film?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got me, a first time live action filmmaker. You've got Chris Pratt, who's done filmmaking and live action at the highest levels, with
Right.
some of the greatest teams ever, whether it's the Jurassic World team or the Marvel team or, anything that, in fact, that he was in the movie Her or something like that, or Zero Dark 30. Like Chris has worked, and so being able to have conversations with him about, things that are working. He's always got great ideas. He's got story ideas. He's also got crew ideas and other things and things to think about, like thoughtful. Well, if you're going to do that, think about this. All of that. He's got really thoughtful analysis, and he's just a generous, good-hearted guy. He's a great guy to
Yeah.
have on your side and to be a partner with. So I was really lucky. I think Chris would have been, regardless of whether he's executive producer, Chris would have came with the same energy and the same can-do attitude and the same team spirit. It's just that he's finally getting rewarded with the title and things like that. And he takes that job really seriously. He's not just a guy who's just doing it for credit. He's a guy who, like I said, he would be offering these suggestions and be working just as hard behind the scenes, even if he didn't have the title. That's just the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been long attached to a Lego Batman sequel, Nightwing solo film, a Jonny Quest feature. Are any of those on the docket next, or should we add a Tomorrow War sequel to that list? I feel like there's a lot. You're kind of becoming Guillermo del Toro. You're stacking them up. Like,
Yeah,
what are we looking for? What's coming next from Chris McKay? I think that's something we're definitely excited for, especially after the Tomorrow War.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Amazon wants to make a sequel to this movie because I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of still some story on the table from a time travel perspective, from a world building perspective, from the White Spikes and things like that. So there's a lot of things that I think we can mess with and have a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure.
And so to me, this is just like, it's like what they did with The Purge or something like that, where it's like, okay, they started with a really interesting concept, and now the next movie and the next movie get to sort of play with those things and explore those things and blow them out. And I think to me, there's a lot more to this world, and it's even from a design standpoint of the stuff that we designed and things like that. So I'm hoping that that's something that they'll want to do. In the meantime, I still want to make a Nightwing movie. I'm still very passionate about Nightwing, and I'm hoping that Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers had some really great recent successes, and especially in the DC stuff that people have really I think, and I think some of the plans that they have now for opening up the universe and multiverse stuff and things like that. I think there's an opportunity now in the success of Joker and everything else. Like, this is the time to make this movie. People are curious about these characters. There's a huge interest in Nightwing as a character, and
absolutely.
And so that's a movie I really want to do, and I really hope it's an action-packed movie, and it's also a very emotional movie. It's a movie that's near and dear to my heart. It's the same kind of thing as this, where it's a hybrid of there's a family story in the middle of it, but it's also like a big badass action movie. And then Jonny Quest, we just turned in a script for Jonny Quest to Warner Brothers, and it's a little bit like Raiders Lost Ark, a little Indiana Jones, but it's a family movie, story about a family, not necessarily just for families. It's going to be a PG-13 movie. It's the kids. You talk about pushing the envelope, PG-13. Sometimes with kids movies they sort of play it safe because they don't want the kids to, in a movie like this, the kids have to, if you're going to do an Indiana Jones movie where the family is going out on these adventures, the kids are going to have to get into trouble, and they're going to have to sort of in over their head. And that's this movie, even from the very first scene, is a very visceral scene. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but it is the opening of the Jonny Quest movie is like, it's not, when I say it's like Scream, I'm only saying that it's like it's spooky, like the opening of Scream, where you're like, oh, that's what this movie is about, and so that's where this movie's going to go. Wow, And not in like a, not in a dark way at all. It's a fun movie, funny movie, but it's just, it's a movie about grief. It's Johnny, the one thing we'd never explore in any of the Jonny Quest stuff is stuff about his mom and what happened to his mom. And so there's a grief story here at its center, and it's about a kid who sort of has a family of people that he sort of put together. Yes, it's his biological dad, but everyone else it's a mixed family, and he's put all these people together, and it's about kind of overcoming grief and in the middle of this big adventure. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then unfortunately, Lego Batman sequel, because Lego is now over at Universal, there probably won't be a Lego Batman sequel, unfortunately. But
we always have the first one.
That's right,
which is great. I've never met a person that doesn't love it, so that's always good.
Oh, good.
So, awesome. Chris, each week on this show, we, me and my co-host, who's not with us today, but we always talk about what we watched in the last week, and we just kind of discuss it. So, in the interest of that, and with the show, what are you watching? What's on the Chris McKay watch list, and maybe the past week or month? I know your time is probably a little different in terms of what you can sit down and watch, but what's something you've been watching or something you've been interested in that's on your mind?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Dracula movies because I'm working on this movie called Renfield, which is about Dracula's assistant. So I've been watching a lot of Dracula movies, whether they're the old Dracula movie, the Bela Lugosi and the Universal stuff, the Hammer, the Hammer series of Dracula movies, Horror of Dracula and Dracula Prince of Darkness and Brides of Dracula, things like that. So I've been watching a lot of those. The Frank Langella Dracula movie. So from the 70s, Disco Dracula. I've been watching a lot of that stuff. And then I've been watching a few Westerns, and I saw a John Wayne movie that I hadn't seen before. And I think the title is Big Jake. But it's like, it's one of his later movies, and it's funny because it's like, I'm a big John Carpenter fan, and there's a lot of Snake Plissken in the John Wayne character in this movie. In fact, the whole runner about "I Thought You Were Dead" that they do with Snake,
Mary Snake,
in Escape from New York, is all from this movie. Which it's not, and it's one that it's just for some reason it's not, because it wasn't like Howard Hawks or John Ford or something like that. It's just sort of like it was a movie that just sort of slipped through my viewing, but I picked it up the other day and I watched it, and it was like, it's really good. It's a surprisingly good movie. So yeah, and John Wayne's kid is in it. Two of John Wayne's kids are in it, and then Robert Mitchum's kid is in it, and it's a weird like family affair. It's definitely worth a watch and beautifully shot.
Oh, that's great. So what are you looking forward to in terms of like other movies that are coming out that aren't your own? Are there any movies that are on the horizon, or any projects that you're like, wow, I really want to see that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see Dune. Dune.
So excited for Dune.
Yeah, like just everything I've seen about Dune, I'm psyched about that movie. So yeah, so I can't wait to see that. Suicide Squad, the James Gunn Suicide Squad, I'm super psyched about. Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho movie. I'm a huge Brian De Palma fan, and it just sort of looks like it really does look like a De Palma movie, doesn't it? I didn't make that connection until you just said it, but yeah, it's very De Palma. Yeah, and I don't know anything about it. All I've seen is just the trailer. So but when I watched the trailer, I felt like it's a De Palma movie. So those are some stuff I'm really excited about. I'm excited to go see movies in movie theaters again.
Absolutely
too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chris, I really appreciate it. We got to wrap up, and I just appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I really enjoyed the Tomorrow War. I'm looking forward to talking to people about it and talking about it on the show. So,
great.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
The human species won't disappear from the face of the earth. Together, we can stop this war.
This is my opportunity to give this world a second chance. Second chances are really hard to come by.